What's up guys, Joe here. I got tons of messages from you guys asking how I went and made my sneaker float in that last photo. You might have saw some of the process in the Instagram story, but I figured I'd give you guys a better tutorial from start to finish on how I did it. So we're going to go through that now. So one of the first things that you're going to need is some gear. Nothing crazy. You can do this with a cell phone up to DSLR, but the one thing you will need is a tripod. So right here is a Joby Gorilla Pod, and this is my go-to for all sneaker pictures, mostly because a lot of pictures need to be taken down low, and this gives you the ability to do that, unlike a lot of different tripods. A little more static, a little bit more high, but with this you can go flying it out as far as you want. You can tilt it, and the best part is you can hang it on stuff. So yeah, I'm going to leave a description to some Gorilla Pods down below, as well as if you want to use an iPhone, I got some cool little ones that you can pick up from Amazon that are pretty cheap, and you can do this, but your phone instead. So yeah, next is a camera. You can use your iPhone if you want. You can use any phone really. But what's cool about the phone is it's probably a lot easier for you, but I would suggest maybe DSLR. This is my 6D. So one of the cool things about the 6D, the reason why I bought it was it has built-in Wi-Fi, and with the Wi-Fi I have the ability to link up with my phone, take photos remotely, and see exactly what my camera sees. And that's one key component of this, is if you don't have someone helping you and you want to do it yourself, it could be a little difficult because you need someone to spot the shoe, set up your focus and everything, and we'll cover all that when we go out and shoot. Just going to go over the concept of what we're doing. Now, just like with anything creative, you can take multiple different routes to get the same end result. So you've probably seen people with their hand out and the shoe floating. You can do that. You can just throw it up, and if you have a wide enough focal length, you can get the whole shoe in the frame, and with a fast enough lens, you can get the nice background blur and freeze the shoe in the air. Another method people do is they take some fishing line, tie it to the loopholes in the shoe, let it hang, and then delete that in post. You can do that, but for me that just seems like a lot of work to tie something. I'd rather spend more time in the computer, and by more time I mean not that much more time. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our shoe and we're going to take a picture with it right here, for instance, and then we're going to take a picture with it not there. Then we're going to bring it into Photoshop, composite both of those images together, and what you'll be left with is a image of a shoe floating. So that's just the basic concept. So let's get out and shoot. In Lightroom, I'm in the develop tool, and I'm just going to edit both these photos real quick. I'm going to use one of the presets that I usually start with, which is my, it's called excessive shadow, but mostly what it is a little contrast pop, and then how my curves are set. So I'm going to kind of edit both of these so they look exactly the same. That way when they're put together, there's no kind of weird jarring difference in the color. So first, start off with my temperature. It was an overcast day, and with it being still winter, there's going to be a little bit of a cool light going on, so I usually like to bump up the warmth a little bit. And then right here, noticing that I want to kind of bring my shadows up just a little bit before I kind of drop down my exposure and get where I want. And then usually with this, what happens with this preset is, with the contrast being boosted up, some colors get kind of blown out a little bit, like this green. So I'm just going to bring the luminance down just a little bit, make it a little bit darker. This actually happens a lot with the reds. It's really annoying. You can see on like my shirt, the reds are super dark and deep, so I don't really want that. And then play with my whites and the blacks a little bit, so give the feel that I want, get a little bit of contrast, a little bit of pop. So now I have both. I'm going to go and sync these two, make sure they're both the same, using the same presets, and then just to double check, I'm going to use this as my base, which I'll edit around my background, and as you can see, they're pretty close. This one's actually a little bit darker, so I'll go back to this and make it a little bit darker. Let's see. Just so they're as close as possible. So they're a little bit different, but this is good enough for how it is. So now that we have that, I'm just going to go and export these. And I'm going to throw these into my folder that I usually do. I have a preset for when I save my photos, but overwrite. Alright, now that those photos are done exporting, we want to go in and actually get into Photoshop. So we're going to open up Photoshop and go navigate to our images that we're going to be using. So I'm just going to drop in the background first. So just click and drag onto the open thing. You don't have to worry about any artboard or canvas sizes for this, because just dragging in will set it up to what your image is. So after we have that in, we're going to go and drag in the shoe. So we'll have two. Now, you'll see right away we have this X over it. No big deal, just press enter and that will place it. And then if you look at the actual layer, we have our background and then we have our shoe layer. There's going to be a little paper icon over it. It's a smart object right now, but in order to edit it like we want to, we're going to have to rasterize it. So with that rasterized, we're now free to go in and edit. We're going to go and use the eraser tool for this. There's tons of different ways to do this. You can use the pen tool. I use that on more complicated things, and I'll show you that kind of on the lower half of this. But that's the beauty of Photoshop. There's tons of different ways to do this. If you're using GIMP or Pixelmator, you'll use a similar process. They all have similar tools. So now that I have my brush tool open, what we're going to do is pick a large brush size that's kind of soft and kind of go and erase our background. We don't want a very hard brush, because you can see when we get down to this area that with the brush moving in the background from the wind, it's kind of changed the color of it, so it's not lining up exactly. With the softer brush, that allows it to be a little more kind of blended in. So that's what we're going to kind of work on here. So I'm going to go as far as we can. If you get too close, like right here, you'll see you actually kind of start to go into the shoe, and we don't want that. So we're going to try and work with the kind of the distance that this goes right here. And I like that. Pull it back just a little bit, and we're good there. And this works. This is okay. From afar, you're not even really going to notice, but you can see how little tree back there and difference in the color. So that's not that big of an issue. And you can see also that I probably should have shot at 2.8 rather than 1.8. But hey, we're zoomed in pretty far, so no big deal. So I'm going to show you guys real quick how to use the pen tool. Use the pen tool on more precise areas. By pressing P on your keyboard, you bring up the pen tool. And the pen tool will take some practice. It's not the easiest tool to use. Just the way it works is just a little funky, but we're just going to go around and trace the outside of this. So what I'm doing is I'm clicking and dragging, and pulling, and depending on where I pull, I actually create kind of like tension on this, and it allows me to kind of curve the actual line that we created. And then obviously I don't need to worry about any of this, I'm deleting it. So here, I'll go all the way around, and then when you go back onto the initial point that we started, you'll see a little circle, and that completes it. So now that we have that, we're just going to right click and do make selection. And this brings up the feather radius. Now, if I didn't have a radius on this, this would actually be as sharp as this is. But because this picture, especially back here, has a blurred background, we want to kind of have some sort of like soft edge. We don't want a very crisp, hard edge. Similar to how I was saying we don't want to use a very hard brush. So I'm going to put a 1mm pixel kind of feather on this. So I'm going to click OK, and now this selects this area, and by hitting delete I'm actually going to remove it. And you can see that it does a really good job of being kind of intricate with it. There's a little bit of my hand there, but that's not the biggest deal. You're not going to see it when you're zoomed out. But this area we do have to take care of, so I'm going to go and make my brush a little bit smaller, go with kind of a medium kind of hardness, and kind of get into this little area and try and fix it up a little bit. And then this is where things get a little more complicated in terms of editing. You want to just really be careful and mindful of everything. Zooming out to double check that what you're removing still looks real, because sometimes if you go and say cut this out, it's pretty jarring. So you want to just kind of play with it and make sure that what you're doing kind of works. So this part, I want to make sure that I use a very soft brush, and this should help kind of even it out a little bit. And I'm pulling away from that, but that's not the biggest deal. Another tool that you may have to use is the clone tool, and that's right here. This works by, if you hold Alt, you sample a area that you want to copy, essentially. So I could erase this, but I know that my background doesn't really line up well. So right here, see how it's more blue? That's okay, but I'd have to erase all of this area over here that I won't want to erase. So what I want to do is use the clone tool. So holding Alt, and I'm going to pull from this white and just kind of click and drag it over. So obviously if I clicked over here and started drawing, it would pull that color over, but we don't want that. So now we have a lot of those flyaways gone. Just check and see if you want to remove anything else. All this is pretty good. This is bothering me, but I'll live. Yeah, this is looking pretty good. All that's left is the crop. I don't like the way this is composed. Sometimes it's hard on the phone, especially when your hand's in there. It can kind of trick you into thinking what your composition is. We also have this, forgot about this, we got this little shoelace down here. You can try and erase that. If not, it's going to stay. That's why it's, yeah, we'll just erase. There you go. I'm good. All that's left is to merge these two layers if you want. You can also save at this point if you want to edit it later, practice more. If you save it as a PSD, it's going to save these layers. So we'll save this right here. Now I can do whatever to this, and I still have a copy of where it is at this current state. So between these two, select it. I'm just going to merge layers. Now this is one giant, just single JPEG rather than two. And I'm going to go and crop it. So by clicking the crop tool, I get my little boundary box, and what I want to do is kind of drag up and get this to the center. I'm holding shift to make sure that my aspect ratio of 3:2 is kind of saved, and then you just kind of have to be careful because you can't go further over here like that, you'll lose it. So you just kind of want to move from this side. Well, obviously it depends on where your photo was taken and if you had to do this. So I'm just going to press enter. Now that's cropped right in the center, just how I want, and we're pretty much done. So all I have to do is file, save it as, place that where we want to be, JPEG, and then do float demo, final. So yeah, that's really it. You want to save it at the maximum that you can. because yeah, you want it to be the highest resolution. If you want to save this as a background or a wallpaper for your phone, you can do that. So after that, we're done. So yeah, that's really it. So like I said, pretty simple, nothing crazy. If you have any questions, hit me up in the comments below, or you can ask me questions on Instagram. But more importantly, I'd love to see what you guys did. If you guys come up with some cool ideas, go ahead, send them to me. Or if you have your own method that you think works easier, love to hear it too. So yeah, that's it. Hope you enjoyed it. If there's anything else you would like to see me do, totally open to it. This was kind of fun. And yeah, let me know in the comments below. And then finally, I do have some videos coming soon of some shoes. I'm waiting for a part for my main tripod, my fluid head from Manfrotto, but they've been taking 2 months to send me the bolt for it. So when I get that, I'll probably throw out some videos, because usually around this time I do make some, sneaker overview montage things and whatnot, because there's a million people that review sneakers and you don't need to watch another one. So, alright, later guys.